Dr. Judith graduated from the University of Nottingham in 1980 and started her own private medical practice in 1995. The allegations against her pertain to prescribing practices, communications with other doctors, and her ethical conduct. Specifically, it is alleged that Dr. Judith prescribed medications for herself on 18 occasions over a 4-year period, and for patient A on 33 occasions over 13 years, as well as for patient B on 31 occasions over 17 years. One of the main concerns is that Dr. Judith did not inform either patient's primary care physician about the prescriptions she made for them, which is classed as a breach of standard medical practice. Furthermore, in 5 separate appraisals conducted between 2015 and 2021, Dr. Judith reportedly denied prescribing medications for herself or her family. The issue was brought to the attention of the General Medical Council on November 22, 2021, by Dr. Judith's responsible officer. The referral to the GMC was initiated following an inspection by the Care Quality Commission. The inspection identified irregularities in Dr. Judith's dispensing book, which prompted further investigation. Overall, the allegations center around Dr. Judith's prescribing practices for herself and her patients, lack of communication with other doctors, and potential discrepancies in her statements during appraisals. These issues came to light during a CQC inspection, leading to the involvement of the GMC. During the hearing, the GMC presented witness statements from a GP appraiser, a CQC investigator, and Dr. Judith's responsible officer. Dr. Judith, on the other hand, provided her own witness statement and a reflective piece. She also gave oral evidence, admitting that her fitness to practice was currently impaired. Dr. Judith explained the difficult personal circumstances she had faced, including severe health issues within her family, which had overwhelmed her at times. She admitted to self-prescribing medication for various reasons, such as a need for speedy treatment and convenience. Although she wasn't certain whether she had read Good Medical Practice 2013 before 2018, she acknowledged knowing that self-prescribing was wrong, especially during the appraisals in 2015 and later. However, she claimed not to fully understand the risks of prescribing for family members and the importance of avoiding such actions. Dr. Judith acknowledged her failure to communicate with the GP of patient A and patient B regarding the prescribed medications, but explained that she felt she had already disclosed this information in her practice's dispensing book. She admitted that she didn't fully comprehend the appraisal process and had constructed a belief that her prescribing practices were acceptable, which led her not to declare them during appraisals. She now understands the dangers of self-prescribing for herself and her family, particularly without informing their NHS GPs, due to potential drug interactions and poor treatment management. Dr. Judith expressed gratitude to the CQC for uncovering the issues during their investigation and supporting her in improving her practice. She emphasized the impact of her learning on probity and ethics, leading her to be more forthcoming about her prescribing practices during the investigation. She apologized sincerely for her actions, acknowledging that she had lied during appraisals out of fear of repercussions and to avoid revisiting traumatic events. In response to tribunal questions, Dr. Judith explained that she made consultation notes when prescribing for patients to maintain records. She also admitted that there were elements of convenience or cost-saving motivations behind some of her actions. Dr. Judith assured the tribunal that she would be honest in future appraisals, understanding the importance of providing relevant information to appraisers to enable them to fulfill their duties properly. The tribunal considered various documentary pieces of evidence provided by both parties. This evidence encompassed electronic prescription records, correspondence between Dr. Judith's legal representatives and the GMC regarding prescriptions, and the CQC report dated March 2023. Additionally, the tribunal took into account 42 testimonials from patients, family members, colleagues, and friends in support of Dr. Judith. These testimonials were read and noted by the tribunal, and they highlighted that the authors were aware of the allegations against Dr. Judith. Despite the allegations, the testimonials consistently portrayed Dr. Judith's actions as significantly out of character, suggesting that her behavior in this instance was not representative of her usual conduct. During the hearing, the counsel, representing the GMC, argued that Dr. Judith had admitted to prescribing for herself and her family over a prolonged period without informing the relevant NHS GPs. He emphasized that she had also lied to multiple appraisers about her prescribing practices, resulting in her current impairment of fitness to practice due to misconduct. The counsel referred to the two-stage process that the tribunal must adopt and cited the case of Roylance versus the General Medical Council to define misconduct as an act or omission that falls short of what is proper for a medical practitioner and must be serious professional misconduct. The counsel pointed out that Dr. Judith had breached paragraphs 16G and 65 of GMP, as well as the prescribing guidance, by self-prescribing and not informing the relevant parties. He acknowledged that the GMC did not contest the appropriateness of the prescribed drugs but emphasized the seriousness of Dr. Judith's persistent prescribing and dishonesty. The counsel, representing Dr. Judith, acknowledged that Dr. Judith had admitted her wrongdoing and accepted that her fitness to practice was impaired. She argued that Dr. Judith had fully reflected on her actions and had taken measures to remediate her behavior. The counsel highlighted Dr. Judith's improved understanding of the risks associated with self-prescribing for herself and her family. The counsel reminded the tribunal that Dr. Judith had admitted the allegations early on and had voluntarily disclosed her full prescribing history in December 2021. She urged the tribunal to consider the context of Dr. Judith's personal life during the events and the evolving understanding of prescribing guidance over time. While acknowledging that Dr. Judith's failure, to tell the truth, was the most significant aspect of her misconduct, the counsel presented several reasons for her actions, including not recognizing the importance of the question, habitual behavior, and fear of contradicting her initial response. The counsel argued that Dr. Judith's personal circumstances had previously overwhelmed her but emphasized that she has since been unburdened and made significant improvements, reducing the likelihood of repeating her behavior in the future. She pointed to Dr. Judith's deep reflections on her actions, insightful understanding, and positive appraisal and CQC reports as evidence of her progress. The counsel asserted that, apart from the public interest consideration, Dr. Judith's fitness to practice would be borderline in terms of impairment. At this stage of the proceedings, the tribunal acknowledged that there is no burden or standard of proof, and the decision on impairment is solely based on its judgment. The tribunal followed a two-stage process, first determining whether the proven facts amounted to serious misconduct and then assessing whether this serious misconduct leads to a finding of impairment. When assessing impairment, the tribunal considered Dr. Judith's conduct at the time of the events and any relevant factors since then, such as remediation efforts and the likelihood of repetition. It applied the test for impairment outlined in Dame Janet Smith's test from the Fifth Shipman Report, focusing on whether Dr. Judith's actions put patients at unwarranted risk of harm, brought the profession into disrepute, breached fundamental tenets of the profession, or involved dishonesty. The tribunal acknowledged that it should consider Dr. Judith's personal circumstances at the time, which might be relevant to her culpability. Additionally, it recognized that a finding of impairment could be necessary to uphold proper professional standards and public confidence in the medical profession, as well as to promote the overarching objective of protecting the public interest. In summary, the tribunal applied a comprehensive approach, taking into account the seriousness of the misconduct, Dr. Judith's personal circumstances, and the public interest, to determine whether her fitness to practice was currently impaired. The tribunal carefully considered each aspect of Dr. Judith's conduct to determine if they amounted to serious professional misconduct. It found that her prescribing for herself and family members over a prolonged period without informing the relevant GPs, along with her dishonesty during appraisals, constituted serious misconduct. When assessing impairment, the tribunal considered the risk of harm posed by her actions, the impact on patient safety, and the potential damage to public confidence in the profession. It concluded that Dr. Judith's actions put patients at risk, brought the profession into disrepute, and breached fundamental tenets of the medical profession. The tribunal also examined Dr. Judith's insight and remediation efforts. While she demonstrated some understanding of her misconduct, the tribunal felt her insight was not fully complete, particularly regarding the seriousness of her dishonesty's effect on public trust in the medical profession. Despite finding a small risk of repetition, the tribunal determined that a finding of impairment was necessary to uphold proper professional standards and maintain public confidence in the profession. Therefore, it concluded that Dr. Judith's fitness to practice was currently impaired due to her misconduct. During the determination of the sanction, both parties made their submissions. On behalf of the GMC, the counsel argued that a period of suspension would be the most appropriate sanction considering Dr. Judith's serious and persistent breach of good medical practice. He emphasized that her dishonesty in a professional setting undermined the regulatory process and brought the profession into disrepute. The counsel referred to the sanctions guidance and presented factors supporting a period of suspension, such as no evidence of repetition, evidence of insight, and the need to protect the public and maintain confidence in the profession. On the other hand, the counsel, representing Dr. Judith, advocated for a shorter suspension, stating that there was a public interest in allowing a good doctor to return to practice sooner. She highlighted Dr. Judith's personal circumstances at the relevant times, her early admissions, and her genuine efforts to remediate her actions. The counsel mentioned that the dishonesty aspects were not the primary allegation and presented testimonials from senior clinicians in support of Dr. Judith. Both parties acknowledged Dr. Judith's dishonesty but differed in their assessment of the appropriate sanction. The tribunal had to weigh these submissions, the SG, and other relevant factors to decide on the most suitable sanction for Dr. Judith's serious misconduct. In the determination on sanction, the tribunal considered various factors to decide on the appropriate sanction for Dr. Judith's serious misconduct. The tribunal recognized that the primary purpose of imposing a sanction is to protect the public, maintain public confidence in the medical profession, and uphold professional standards. Aggravating factors included Dr. Judith's repeated episodes of dishonesty over a long period and in a professional setting. Mitigating factors were also taken into account, such as Dr. Judith's personal circumstances, early disclosure and full admissions, cooperation with investigations, apology, good character, testimonials from clinicians, evidence of remediation, and developing insight. The tribunal rejected the option of no action or conditions, finding that they would not be sufficient to maintain professional standards and public confidence. The tribunal considered suspension as a possible sanction, weighing the gravity of the misconduct against factors supporting suspension, including evidence of insight and remediation. Ultimately, the tribunal concluded that a period of suspension for 9 months would be the most appropriate and proportionate sanction. Regarding an immediate order, the tribunal determined that there were no clinical concerns or significant risks to patient safety in this case. The public interest did not require an immediate order, and public confidence would be maintained by the substantive order of suspension made by the tribunal. As a result, Dr. Judith's registration will be suspended 28 days from the date on which written notification of the decision is deemed to have been served unless she lodges an appeal. If she does appeal, she will be allowed to continue practicing unrestricted until the appeal's outcome is known.